Renewable energy is setting growth records each year. Combustion cars are slowly but surely being replaced by electrical vehicles, and that is something to celebrate. And still, this development has its pitfalls. Gradually, we are becoming aware on how dependent we are on certain minerals to build this brand new world. Are we replacing a dependency on Russia's natural gas with the dependency on China for the minerals of this energy transition? And are we building a transition to clean energy on dirty mineral businesses? In this episode of The Switch to a Green Economy, we are going to talk about sustainable ways of extracting these minerals and how to make a clean energy truly clean. I'm Alexander Halling, and I'm the co-host of this podcast. Today, Christina couldn't join us, but since John is here all the way from New Zealand just for one day in Stockholm, we didn't want to miss this opportunity to have a conversation with him on how we can extract, critical minerals from the earth in a sustainable way. So, joining us today is John Worth, the CEO of Geo40, a New Zealand company. So, very much welcome, John.
Thank you, Alex. It's nice to be here.
It's great to have you. And John, about 4 years ago, we did a small investment into Geo40. And we are a company based on capital that develops geothermal projects all over the place. We thought it was super interesting what you guys are doing with extracting silica from geothermal brines. So could you give me the 20-minute or the 20-second pitch? The 20-minute Christina would kill me. The 20-second pitch on why that is a good idea.
Certainly. I think there's two things to think about around silica. Silica is quite valuable in its own right as a sustainable critical nanoparticle. But also silica is in many ways a gateway technology, because once you've taken silica out of geothermal fluid, it then creates the opportunity to use more heat in the fluid, to pull out other minerals like lithium or boron, and then also to think about doing CO2 sequestration.
But in the geothermal world, we see silica as a pain in the behind. To get rid of this is actually very good for us. But you see a business out of just extracting this and then selling it to, what are the uses of silica?
So you're absolutely right. I think taking silica out of geothermal fluid makes a huge difference to the geothermal power generator, right? There's a very nice benefit of being on a site. And so we sell that silica to a whole range of industries. The way to think about silica is it's a nanoparticle. So a customer is calling up and saying, John, I would like to buy a 6 nanometer silica particle. And that particle has particular physical properties. So if you use silica in white paint, it pushes the titanium dioxide, which is what gives white paint its whiteness, further apart, and you can use less titanium dioxide and have the same whiteness of paint. Right, so there's lots of ways why silica is I guess, described as a decarbonization product.
Now, if I would try to explain that for my 7-year-old, she would kill me. So if you would explain it to my 7-year-old, what do you actually do?
In terms of taking the silica out?
Yes.
I think what Geo40's got very good at, and we learnt this in silica, but we apply it exactly the same way to boron or to lithium, is we are great manipulators of fluids. And when I say manipulation, I mean physically and chemically.
Okay. So let me try to rephrase it. So my 7-year-old would, you take basically hot water coming out of a pipe, you extract things that they cannot see in this water, you turn that into something valuable, and then you sell it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So it works.
That's right. So we're manipulating things like temperature. So Geo40, we change the temperature very quickly from very, very hot to 40 degrees. So you see we're starting to play with temperature and to manipulate how we get this very small particle, this nano-sized particle, out of this fluid.
All right. Okay. So to try to summarize it from our perspective, you can actually, by extracting this mineral, you help us that develop geothermal power plants take away a big pain that costs us a lot of money, and by taking this out you can sell it and you can make a living as well, and we will reduce our O&M basically.
That's exactly right. There's a level of fabulous symbiosis there.
In our geothermal power plants, why do you want to extract the silica? I think it could be good for the listener to understand.
Yeah, look, I think we need to remember that every geothermal power station in the world, the amount of heat that can be extracted from that geothermal fluid is limited by the amount of silica in the fluid. So once we take the silica out, we make more heat available, right? And without removing silica blocks all the reinjection wells and all the reinjection pipes, which is a huge component of the operational cost of running a geothermal power station. So we've done testing work and it's been independently validated. We can completely eliminate the silica scaling on those reinjection pipes.
And just for the listener, you bring up heat through pipes, you run a system to produce electricity, and then you have to re-inject that again. And it's in these re-injection pipes, if you take the temperature down too low, you will actually have them clog up.
Exactly right.
And you have to re-drill new wells, right? That summarizes it.
That's exactly right.
So and it also limits the way that you could use district heating or things like that if you have to re-inject at high temperatures.
That's exactly right, and I think we've seen a real shift, right? We've seen energy prices around the world go crazy. We all know why. So, taking the silica out opens up some heat, whether it's used for generation or whether it's just sold to a local community or used for growing tomatoes. Right? And this low-cost heat is suddenly becoming an incredible asset now, right? Rather than having to pay for primary generation.
Yeah. All right, very good. Let's switch over to lithium and other minerals, right? Because lithium is, everyone is trying to extract lithium. It's opening new mines all over, and it's mainly being driven by the EV market that is booming. Was lithium always something that you wanted to extract also from the beginning of Geo40?
Yeah, right from the very start, a decade ago, we had always sought to recover high-value minerals out of fluids, lithium, boron, and silica is there too, and you really have to take the silica out first. So we spent many years developing a technology from silica, but it's that exact technology which gives us a real lead in lithium, right? Because we've put a team together that can develop these technologies and scale them up. In New Zealand, we are processing about 7 million litres of fluid a day, right? And not many people on lithium are doing that. And so, yes, we always wanted to get to lithium. We started the journey properly 4 years ago, and we commissioned our third pilot plant 5 weeks ago, and it's out running on a site in Texas.
That's awesome. But, how many other plants are there operating right now? Are you the only one, or is there a lot of different?
No, look, I think at last count, there's probably over 100 companies trying to develop a solution for what we call DLE, direct lithium extraction, so direct extraction out of fluids. I think we would say there are probably 5 at the front of that game that are at advanced pilot stage or have built, like us, several pilots and are now getting out on site. And I think North America is where the action is at the moment. But yeah, probably 5 or 6 techs at the front of that race.
All right, but if you just put it into perspective, how much lithium, or do you know what's the market for lithium, and how much more do we need to produce in order to meet that demand?
Yeah, look, I think the analysts all agree that the world is very short of lithium for at least a decade. And the reason for that is that's about how long it takes to bring a new hard rock mining asset on stream. So short term, there's a great shortage. And like all markets, at some point, incentive pricing brings on new assets. But I think the advantage for DLE is it should sit around the lower middle part of the cost curve. And therefore, once we get it working at scale, it should be very attractive. It should be a very attractive source of lithium.
All right. And so you're saying that, to open a new mine, you have a 10-year lead time with going into and extracting it from brines instead. That's much more available, so you can actually speed that up.
Yeah, we believe so. We think if you can scale up on brines that are flowing now, you should be able to scale very fast.
And is it, from a macroeconomics, it's always a discussion on, mineral security. Where do we source the mineral? Is it sourced in a sustainable way, etc.? Is that also driving demand to source it locally, or?
Look, certainly. I think what's exciting about direct lithium extraction from brine is you get this overlap where the lithium demand is with where you can do local supply, right? So we're very focused on North America at present, but we're seeing some very compelling brine resources open up in Europe, where there's also big battery demand. So I think that's a nice way to deal with the geopolitics of lithium, which are becoming increasingly problematic. And brine is a huge opportunity.
I realized we haven't explained what brine actually is. We're from the industry, but what is brine, if you would explain that?
So brine typically means a salty water. So an underground fluid that's typically quite salty, and it will contain a range of salts: sodium, calcium, magnesium, and lithium sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. So what we see in the lithium world is we started our journey on geothermal brines, but we're increasingly working on things like oil and gas separation brines, where you have these fluids being pumped today in very large volumes. And a number of those fluids contain lithium in quantities that we can economically, or we believe we can economically extract.
And how many of those resources are available to tap in today? Or do you need to drill new wells, or how does the market look like?
Look, I think there's both sectors are moving in parallel, right? We have the existing brines, which is anywhere there's oil and gas, there's potentially lithium. Not everywhere, but many places. And you've also got people obviously looking at other underground water sources that need to be drilled. So there's really two things developing in parallel. But we see brine resources very extensively across North America, right? So Canada and the US. We see brine resources obviously in the salars of South America. We're seeing brine resources in Europe. We're seeing brine resources in Asia, where you find geothermal. So these resources are very extensive.
And basically, in every well that you have a resource or a fluid pumping up, this could be extracted.
Yeah, and there are many places in the world where you find lithium at very, very low concentrations.
Yeah.
And there's a point at which, of course, it's not economic to try to extract. But increasingly, we're seeing compelling lithium concentrations turning up in all sorts of corners of the world.
Interesting. And we usually talk about at Baseload Capital how few geothermal wells that there are globally, and how many are about being drilled per year, and which is less than 800, right? While in the oil and gas sector, we're still up to plus 70,000. So I'm guessing that the amount of wells available where you potentially could have lithium or cesium or boron or silica, for that matter, is extensive.
Look, it really is, and I think we've known about that for some time. I think what's changed in the last 6 to 12 months is the oil and gas sector has started to get excited by that opportunity. So we've seen some of the biggest players start to look at the lithium concentrations in their brines, and this is incredible. If you're an oil and gas company, this is a great decarbonisation approach, and this is genuine. These guys are putting serious money into this, looking at what they can do on their assets.
Very good. So it's also a way for the oil and gas companies to decarbonize and become more sustainable.
Correct. And I think if you think about oil and gas, they're handling a lot of water. The more they clean that water up, the more they can do with it in terms of things like social license to operate, irrigation of land, making use of that water for good things.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that deserves an awesome button for helping and partnering with the other companies to make them more sustainable. I think that's awesome. All right, John, so let's switch back into when you started Geo40, where you are today, because you've been operational for almost a decade, right? So in those years, what would you say are the 3 greatest successes that you have had in the company?
Look, I think lots of companies have tried to take silica out of geothermal fluid and not succeeded. So we're very proud of what we've done and the fact we run a large-scale asset that we run every day of the year. So we're very proud of that journey and the team that got us there. I think that what's interesting is that took some time and it was tough. What we've done in lithium, we've come through much of the front end of the journey, but at 3 times the speed. And that's particularly exciting. And that's a function of having done it before in silica, right? We have the resources and expertise in-house to just do that journey more safely and faster. So I think that's super exciting. And as we look ahead, I think the third thing, we are seeing the sector get really excited about a potentially very sustainable source of lithium. And you need that support in your industry to do great things. So, we are out at the moment operating with an oil and gas major in Texas with incredible support from them to chase this goal. And I think that is, enormously exciting.
So partnerships, you would say, then, is super important.
And really genuine partnerships. These guys have turned over heaven and earth to help us to succeed, which is a great partnership to have.
And can you today develop these resources profitable, or are you dependent on subsidies and other people investing in them, or is it already today a sustainable business?
Look, our big silica asset in New Zealand should get to be financially sustainable this financial year, which will be a great milestone. It's only just 3 years old.
Yeah.
We've had to build silica markets and do all of those things. So that will be a good milestone. The economics of lithium are very compelling.
Yeah.
You obviously have to build your way there, which is a journey, and that needs to be funded. We have some incredibly supportive investors who are committed to that journey. But the economics of lithium are very exciting, and that's what's attracting investment to the sector.
Very good. And it's also, you have to realize also when you're looking at the mining sector and extracting it from brine, you have a much less footprint as well. The way you can preserve that nature is much easier, I'm guessing, when you're doing it from brine.
Yeah, I think that's what's exciting about lithium. And a lot of our capital to date has actually come from traditional mining investors who've been the first, to understand this potential to mine brine, right, rather than crushing rock.
Yeah.
I think it's those traditional mining investors who've worked that out and said, this is exciting if we can make it work.
All right, John, so let's zoom out a bit. If we can now prove that we can extract silica from geothermal brine. You can take that from other brines as well and use that in a lot of different markets. We can extract lithium and other minerals. Where will the whole critical mineral business be in, say, 10 years? How will the world look like?
Look, I think there's a genuine desire to see more diversity in the sourcing and processing. Let's remember, it's not just sourcing, it's processing too of critical minerals. And by that, I think we have some supply chains now which have choke points, particularly around processing. And we're seeing a lot of federal support in the US to unlock that. Europe is coming on board as well to see what role Europe can play, particularly in processing, but also in the upstream supply. And so, we don't think there's one answer to this, but what I think we would like to see in a decade's time is really just more diversity of both supply and processing, right? And then you get a thick market, and you get good price competition, and you can start to compete on your merits in terms of the sustainability of your product.
Yeah, and do you see the demand already today coming from these big EV manufacturers or battery factories, or are you already signing offtake agreements, or?
So the offtake space is interesting. There's a huge appetite to find sustainably sourced lithium that's geopolitically safe.
Yeah.
Right. So we're seeing that appetite very strongly. What we're planning to do this summer is to start to ship small lithium samples to potential custom off-takers in the US, or North America and in Europe. Right. So that's quite deliberate. And then we are designing a demonstration plant at the moment that will make several hundred tons of lithium carbonate. Or lithium carbonate equivalent, and that will also go to customers.
Yeah.
Right. So we're starting to build belief on the customer side that lithium from brine is a credible, high quality source of lithium alongside their current.
Yeah, because
supply.
they today are getting it from regular mines that are only found in a few places globally, right?
And evaporation from South American salars. Yes.
Oh, right. Yeah. So that's very positive then, that there's a big demand from the existing EV industry to source it more sustainable, and then that actually allows them to sign offtake agreements with companies even early stages, or on earlier stages than they're used to.
Correct. And I think we're seeing that signal very clearly from the sector.
Yeah.
Right. We don't think there'll be any shortage of interest on the buy side.
Very good. All right, so we know there's a demand, we know we can extract it, but what are the hurdles going forward? How do we actually build this industry?
Look, I think there's really three things you have to get right if you're trying to build a mineral recovery business. I think the first is you've got to find great partners. Right? So these are the guys that have the resource and want to be in this business with you, and you need great partners who can help you and really help you move at speed. The second is an old one, and you know this, Alex, this is capital.
Yep.
Right? You need great capital partners who realize it's not linear, it's not simple, probably take longer than you wish.
Yep.
And the third thing you need to build a great team. You need to build guys and girls that can get out there in the field and do this work and cope with adversity and face technical challenges, and really make the technology work and prove that to your great partners. And then really you have the world in front of you.
Very good. I think that's a very good summary. So partners, capital, and a great team. That's what you need in order to succeed.
And that's very much the pitch working for Geo40, right?
Yeah.
The horizon is a very wide one. but it's going to take some real commitment to get there.
All right, so where are Geo40 in 10 years?
We would hope to be one of the best direct lithium extraction technology partners on the planet. We'll hopefully have our silica business at another level of maturity too, so we'd like to license that technology broadly as well. And we will probably do the same in boron. So we would like to support our technology being on a number of sites around the planet where there are these minerals that can be sourced.
Very good.
We'll be running a business to support those partners and help them be successful.
Excellent. And how big? Like, can you do this globally, or is it only in specific countries?
Look, it is global, and I think let's touch on silica and perhaps other minerals. So, we are talking to a number of parties in the silica space who have expressed an appetite to license our technology, right? And that's very exciting. They're big geothermal generators, and that's a big step for us.
Yeah.
To get beyond just running our own big plant. And for the industry to believe in that enough to want to actually license the tech, that's a big step.
And you could then scale up much faster as well.
Of course. And then lithium is, I guess, following that same roadmap, right? Really just getting through piloting, and we have a pilot that'll travel the whole of North America this summer. Between now and October, we will cover 7 or 8 of the major geological basins of North America. And then we'll follow that with a demonstration plant that we are designing now. So we expect to have that running next year. And then we scale up from there.
So that's pretty cool. So you actually have a truck-mounted lithium extraction plant sitting on a truck that you move between different sites.
Two giant trucks, and they're heading off on this outrageous road trip around North America. And they'll finish.
Are you going to be there?
I'll be there for part of it.
Yeah.
And then it'll finish in October in northern Canada.
Nice. You have to invite us for that.
We will.
Yeah,
time for a site visit. It's great fun.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And imagine we would have we would be able to do that with geothermal, but we're more stationary. We'll be where the resource is.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome, John. So John, we've been talking about silica, we've been talking about lithium, we're talking about boron and cesium. But boron and cesium, what are they actually used for? We haven't spoken about that.
So boron is not widely appreciated, but if you're driving a Tesla, boron's in the magnets and the motors and the high strength steel and some of the composites. So boron is a very strategic material, not as popular or known about as lithium. Very important. Cesium's even more curious. It's in the touchscreen of your iPhone. It's used in atomic clocks and all sorts of weird and wonderful applications. Extremely valuable.
Yeah.
Only found in a few places on Earth, but you find it not
compared
so
to gold.
Often. Yeah, a similar sort of money. I mean, very expensive product, and you don't find it everywhere.
No.
You just find it in some geothermal systems.
Interesting. Yeah. So if you hit boron and cesium and lithium and silica in one, then that's the jackpot.
Look, I don't think you ever heard them all together, and we only at the early stages of a technology for cesium.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. So at Baselor, we talk a lot about the geothermal ecosystem, but in your view, how does mineral extraction fit into that, and how can we utilize the geothermal resource in a better way?
Look, it's super interesting. I think when I was younger, we used to build big geothermal power stations, a minimum of 100 megawatts. And that was all we did.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's getting harder to find those new development opportunities. And I really think we should think about anywhere geothermal power is happening, we should think about that as an ecosystem where there is enormous opportunity to do more. Right. And so we should keep the geothermal power running, baseload power, best product in the electricity market.
Yeah.
Right. Then we should sit on the back of that. We should look at what minerals are in the fluid, and we should extract sensitively whatever we can. It might be silica, it might be lithium, might be boron, and so on. Once we've taken the silica out, we should do some extra generation. Typically, we can generate about 10% more megawatts at the same site. We should be doing that, right? No new infrastructure, just more generation. And we should be thinking about other things. We should be thinking about trying to provide district heating to the local town, right? So we should low-cost heating to make communities warmer at lower cost, right? Or to grow fruit and vegetables, right? And we should be thinking about sequestering the CO2 that's coming back up the hole, or environmental CO2, or industrial CO2. We can do all of those things within that broader ecosystem, and that's what we should be looking to those big geothermal generators to get excited about. The technology is there. It just needs those partnerships to come together with a will.
I think that's fantastic. So give an awesome to the geothermal ecosystem. Thank you, John, for saying that.
And look, I think, and just to follow up and choose whether you use it, I think we have seen a level of reluctance from the big geothermal generators. These guys generate megawatts and they sell them into wholesale power markets.
Yeah.
It's what they do. It's not easy to think about pulling minerals out of fluid or to think about sequestering CO2. These aren't natural things to do, but I think, and these big companies sometimes find this a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
What we have seen in 2024, though, is a real turnaround in that space.
Yeah.
Where companies are looking for new opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think also that they're starting to realize that they have a big part of their resource being underutilized. But most of the old power plants, they haven't been that much developed in the last 20, 30 years, right? We had the majority of the development in the high temperature geothermal space was in the 80s, 90s, and the early 20th century, or 21st century. So I think there we're going into a big shift as well. And then these are ways to both improve the way that they produce, add other revenue streams to it, and then also working in a more sustainable way. So I think you're totally
and a very
on point
nice
there.
way to incrementally build value.
Exactly.
Right? And
exactly.
building a brand new geothermal power station is not an easy endeavor, but
no.
you can incrementally add value.
For sure. All right, very good, John. So let's move on to questions from the future.
Questions from the future.
What do you want me to do different than your generation?
This is a very important question. I have a 12-year-old.
It's a tough one, yeah.
I have a 12-year-old, and we go surfing together a lot. And she wants a very, very clean planet. Right? She wants to surf in beautiful water and to swim and snorkel in beautiful water. And so what she expects, as she grows up, is to hold her government and local government and national government to account around the environment in a way that our generation has probably been a bit remiss on. Right? Yeah. So, I think that it starts with the politics, and she will have much higher expectations, or her generation will, than perhaps my generation. And we can do these things now. Yeah. Right? And if you go back 50 years, we built coal to keep people warm. Right? Yeah. And we have different choices now.
Yes.
But we still have to make the right choices.
Yeah.
So she will expect us, she will expect the leaders of her generation to make those good choices.
Yeah, and to act on that. And I think that's to be accountable for the future and not push it to someone else.
Well, and you can, if you have two assets, you can build a gas peaking plant maybe, or you could build a renewable asset, be it geothermal or wind. Yeah. And if the business cases are not quite the same, you should make a social choice, not necessarily an economic choice.
So what I also hear you say is that we need leaders that dare to lead and not just follow the easiest path forward.
Absolutely.
All right. Very good. Thank you. We're coming to an end, and I want to say that, from my side, that was a great conversation. My greatest takeaway was the three things you said about Geo40, what you need in order to succeed, which was then good partners, you need capital, and you need great teams. Like, if you have this, you can build startup businesses that can actually change the world, and I think that's my biggest takeaway. What was your biggest takeaway, John?
Look, I think, and I get a reminder of this every time I see you somewhere around the world, Alex. We collectively each own, or each have developed a part of the ecosystem, a part of this new generation, new geothermal ecosystem, and none of us have it all, right? And so you come back to the way we will succeed is through building really genuine and strong partnerships where there's value for everybody. It won't be easy. It will be technically difficult, be challenging, but it's those partnerships that will really discover that opportunity. And I think I'm reminded when I talk to you, Alex, that those are the things we have to bring together.
Yes, it is.
That's
awesome. So cheers to partnerships. Thank you, John. We're coming to an end. If you like this episode, remember to subscribe and share it with others. And until we meet next time, take care of yourself, and if you can, someone else.